We were always taught as kids that marijuana was nothing but a gateway drug, or maybe something to get arrested over. But in recent years, states all over the US have moved to legalize marijuana, and also to make it available as a medical alternative. And why is that? I'm here to convince that marijuana should be legalized across the United States and not be held to such a negative stigma. And the three arguments that I want to present are that marijuana has no harmful effects to the brain, legalizing marijuana makes states more money, and that marijuana has an abundance of medical uses. The first thing I would like to convey is that medical marijuana has no harmful effects to the brain. This is because only in some studies has it shown to affect teens and people under the legal age of use. But drugabuse.net says those who started smoking marijuana as adults didn't show notable IQ declines. Children may experience different effects due to their brains not being fully developed, and a number of over-the-counter drugs cause problems with brain development also, maybe even more so than medical marijuana. Some may argue that a decline in IQ could be detrimental to the lives of those affected, and therefore it doesn't have harmful effects on the brain and body. However, all drugs have slight drawbacks, and especially if used before the right age. Drugabuse.net also states, there are no reports of teens or adults dying from marijuana alone. The second thing I would like to discuss is that legalizing marijuana could be making states a lot more money. States who have legalized marijuana have been generating the state more money by taking it away from the black market and putting the money back in the hand of the states. Taxpolicy.org states, in the calendar year 2018, Colorado collected $267 million and Washington collected $439 million in state marijuana taxes, or roughly 1% of state and local owned source revenue in each state. 1% of total tax revenue. That is a lot of money that states could be using for state-funded things, etc. Some may argue that building this infrastructure in a state may be too complicated and require too much to get off the ground. However, since legalizing, these states have since covered those expenses and have been profiting more than ever and investing that back into the state. The last thing I would like to discuss is how marijuana could be useful and abundant of medical uses. The decision to legalize marijuana was helpful in first of hopes in making it available to patients as a medicinal alternative. And studies have shown that it's helpful in a number of areas. Harvard Health says, it's clearly safer than opiates. It's impossible to overdose and far less addictive. It can take the place of NSAIDs such as Advil or Aleve. If people can't take them due to their problems with their kidneys. Marijuana can act as a way to help patients with their pain without causing addiction or adverse effects of opiates alone. And one may argue that marijuana is not helpful since it is psychoactive. However, it's important to note that not all strains of marijuana are psychoactive. And in fact, cannabinol dominant strains do not carry this effect as much and can alleviate such things as stress, anxiety, depression, and even relieve epilepsy. To conclude, marijuana should be legalized across the United States and not be held to the past negative stigma. Marijuana has no harmful effects on the brain. Legalizing marijuana could make states more money, and that marijuana has an abundance of health and medicinal uses. I hope my speech has made people more able to consider marijuana more seriously, as it's a positive thing and could be great for both state revenue and for patients seeking alternative things. So maybe it started as something we were ought to stay away from, but marijuana could be the next medicine and treatment of our future.